Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cooking with Big Mark.
Good day, folks. I want to do something on this about this session that sort of a forewarning. Some of the material we're talking about has caused people to develop tears and things, and not a crying jay, but just tears. And it's a story about the famous allium family.
Mm.
And the allium family, for those who don't know it, is the family of onions. Therefore, the tears and the great, how do you slice an onion without crying? So anyway, the allium family is all the onion world. And it's, hard onions, leeks, garlic, ramps, all those things are all part of the onion world, the allium world. We're going to concentrate pretty much just on the onions part of it. And there's sort of different categories. The real workhorse of the onion family, what they call the storage onions, is the yellow onion. And that is really the flavor is most severe, and it's the one that really almost everybody uses in basic cooking and developing things. It's called storage onion because what they do is they dry it in the field. They call field dried onions. And they sit and dry them all up. And so when you get them, that's why they will last sometimes for months and months, especially if kept in a cool place. And so that becomes the sort of the workhorse of the onion family. And I must admit, as far as vegetables go, there's no vegetable at all that even come close to coming close to my use of onions. I use them for everything. Almost every recipe I do, other than making chocolate sauce for ice cream, is involved with onions. I just like the flavor of it. So that's the workhorse onion. That's the yellow onion. Then you have what they call the sweet onion, and this is the big thing. So I remember the old days when Vidalia came out, onions, which would be in April and May, and that was a big deal, and they were special onions. Now every day you go to the market, sweet onions are featured all the time, so everybody's growing them, and so fast go. The old days, they used to be the Vidalia, be the Walla Wallas and Washington State and the Maui's from Hawaii. And people look forward to those, but now the sweet onions are here, and I begin to wonder if we're getting old sweet onions as opposed to the fresh ones that we're getting. But they were what they call the softies, and obviously you can eat them. Some people eat them like an apple. But the other thing I learned in looking this up was those are the only onions that they think you should keep in the refrigerator, which I had not heard that before. Then we go from there to the red onion, which is much sharper and spicy, and it's again from mostly done in salads. It's always a big part of Italian cuisine. And a lot of people now are using it. They found out by soaking it in cold water and vinegar. It's like a little bit of a pickling job and keeping it cold. It now becomes like a garnish on top of sandwiches and things, on top of salads, as opposed to be in the salads and things. But it's the red onion, and it's popular as it has always been. Then we have the white onion, which is another one. That's a sort of a sweet. It's soft and onion, and it has a little more subtle flavor than the other onions do. And that's mostly cooked in Latin American cooking is where that's featured. And but again, it's a nice onion with a nice flavor, and it serves the purpose. Then we go from there to shallots. Shallots are like a very milder thing, and that's sort of the base of most of French cooking when they use onions, especially in their special dishes. The shallot gives you sort of the flavor and kick they want, but in a subtle way as opposed to sort of an upfront taste. And that's again the basis of a lot of classic dishes. Then we have green onions called bunching onions, scallions, and misnamed spring onions. They aren't spring onions. They're onions but they're milder, broken. They're very heavily favored in Asian cooking. They also make a great garnish if you take an onion and cut the end of it off and run a knife vertically up and down twice, then put it in cold water. It'll flame out like a flower. It makes a nice makes a nice garnish.
What would be the distinction between a spring onion and a leek or a ramp?
Leeks, well, leek is it's just an onion. A ramp is a wild leek, basically. They're very expensive and they only come one time a year because the main reason is because those have to be foraged, and it's not something that they grow. So the leek is just a vegetable that has oniony qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And you slice it, and it melds into a thing because of its construction. When you cook it, it's more like a leafy type thing than an onion would be. Then you get to what the green onion, but the real spring onion, which you get this time of year. Actually, when they plant onions, they do them all together, and they're very closely planted together. And what they do is when the shoots start coming up, they start pulling out little ones in between to leave more room for the big ones to develop. So what you're getting with the spring onion really is just a small onion that has not been grown. It has been picked early, and that's but that's why they do it. And that's the real spring onion. And those can be cooked quickly, braised, or done all kinds of things with it. Then the pearl onions, you get a little ones, those little small sweet ones, and this are the basis of the beef bourguignon. And in the I'm trying to think of beef bourguignon and coq au vin. That's the onion that is featured in that, and they have a nice sweetness to them. And the peel is small, and they're peeled, and they grow. Then the final oniony one would be the chipolline onion, which is again a small flat. It looks like somebody squashed it down a little bit. But those again are great for especially in Italian dishes, to be roasted whole and then used as garnish. It has a nice sweetness to it. So all these onions, all these onion flavors. As I say, the ramps are, it's a wild leek, but it's just an amazing family. Garlic is also of the same family, but it's really become. It is so much part of everybody's mise en place, depending where you are, whether it's you get down to Cajun, the trio, the famous trio of onions and peppers. And then you get the sofrito, and every basic preparation for almost any dish always includes onions. So anyway, those are the tears, but they're mostly after you eat it, they become tears of joy. So we'll go from there.
Yeah, unless you have to peel pearl onions.
Yeah, peeled pearl onions and stuff. Another thing they talk about, another thing I hadn't heard before was if you want to cut down the weeping, the pearl onion would be because of the size of it's a pain in the neck. The larger ones, but they say put them in the freezer for a while. Sometimes the cold will mitigate it. So. You hear the old things, put a crust of bread under your lips. I've heard all kinds of wacky things about preventing tears, but that's the newest one. Put in the freezer for a while.
So. The freezer thing kind of works. I mean, it doesn't totally work, but it definitely it mitigates it slightly.
Yeah, and the pearl onion ones, I heard somebody puts those in a paper bag and rattles them up and down very very heavily, and sometimes that helps to take some of the skin off as well. I haven't tried it, so I don't know whether it works or not.
Interesting. All right. Well, on my end, going in a direction that's 100% not allium-based, but talking about bitters a little bit, and we're going to make a daiquiri. So a friend of mine got a really nice write-up in the Trib, and I wanted to do something nice for he and his wife. And they really like old fashions, so I decided I would make bitters for them. And you remember I love Chinese 5-spice a lot, so here they are, the Chinese 5-spice bitters. And this is comprised of our whole star anise, this beautiful cassia cinnamon bark, and the Szechuan peppercorn. This is all from that great Middle Eastern grocery store in Andersonville. And then, of course, we have our cloves and our fennel seed. And I used that meat tenderizing thing you gave me years ago to smash them all down, and then place them in this lovely Ray and Nephew overproof rum. When you're making bitters, you want something that's high proof because you only use a little bit. It's a flavoring agent. But that aside, since I had some rum left over, Sean, could you grab me the shaker? I have it in the freezer. I didn't know how long we were going to be discussing onions, so I thought it was best to keep it cold. So we have our, thank you very much. We have our can here, and we are going to take our, I was going to use the whole thing, but it was so beautifully aromatic, I decided that I wanted to at least make a drink with it. So we do our 1.5 ounces of our overproof rum, and then we have our simple syrup here.
Is that just a straight simple syrup or a flavor?
It is. People often do demerara with daiquiris as well, which is delicious. I think this rum is just so pure and flowery that a simpler, less invasive taste-wise syrup would work better with it. So we have our our lime juice that I squeezed this morning. Get the saran wrap off this. And here we go. So we've got our freshly squeezed lime juice that again is like about 3/4 of an ounce. Set that guy aside. And then you just want to shake it. Like the proverbial Polaroid picture. Here, get in there. It smells so good. And we're gonna crack our can here. And I really like to do daiquiris in a coupe, but we don't have any coupes at the moment, so I'm using a martini glass instead. And you're gonna see you don't really get a ton of color here. It's just a very lovely opaque color. So here we are. Ooh, you can smell it's just fresh, fresh, fresh. There's nothing fresher. You remember back in the day at the bistro, we had the sour mix that came in the large container similar to the dishwashing soap, which I think I brought up before. That's what we used to use for daiquiris, and there's a whole different beast. Beautiful. And you're really just in the way you use salt in cooking, all you're doing with the lime and the syrup is just eliciting even more flavor from your rum. And this is just incredible. To save the rest of this for later because I have things to do today and it's Navy strength. So thank you to everyone for joining us for another episode of Cooking with Big Mark, a real tearjerker as promised. And we will see you all soon.